Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope everyone's well. Lightsaber in the back, it looks like. It's not meant to look like that. Morning for me, afternoon or night for probably most of you. If you would like to ask me a question during this stream, on the right, I always have to pick the opposite. On the right here, make sure you put a whole bunch of emojis next to your question so I know it's directed at me. Otherwise, feel free to chat with each other. Let me know if I'm coming in loud and clear. Gear I'm using, Panasonic GH5 with a Leica 12mm f1.4, which is a 24mm equivalent, and a rim light because it's still, the sun is coming up, and I don't want to have to worry about, light going in and out, things like that. Let's pop out the chat here so I can read your questions a lot easier. Hello to the regulars, martial arts, oriental medicine. Who else is here that I recognize the name of? Some of you guys, because of the different time zone, this stream that I do is on the opposite, not opposite, but usually I do my streams, and I still do my streams late morning on my Sunday, which is probably a Saturday night for most of you. But today I'm doing a stream on Thursday morning early. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here. So it's probably Tuesday night for a few of you. David, how are you, man? Another regular and a member. You enjoy the midweek streams. Yeah, I didn't know how many people would from Melbourne, Australia, like in our time zone. Okay, hi to all the newbies. Remember, feel free to ask me a question. I'll try and answer it, and I'm not going to answer any stupid questions. And as always, discussing the more recent videos. Another video dropping either tonight or tomorrow at latest, but I should be able to get it out tonight, but I have a few things to do as well. But these are discussing the last two videos because they're probably the ones in people's minds, fresh in people's minds. Martial Arts Oriental Medicine says, I don't know what to believe anymore. These are emotions, and this world needs a serious educational restart. Humans need to be scorned. I'm not sorry, maybe I'm just fed up with humanity's both genders. Yeah, there's this frustrating thing between trying to shake the world's hand and be a cooperative, good person. It's kind of like when a kid's screaming at you, you have to kind of let him go. Even if you see that dog on the street that's sort of been, you could tell it's had a hard life, and it snaps at everyone, and you would like to show some heart or have a discussion or make their lives better. But if they keep biting you, what's the point of being a piñata? I think once you get to adulthood, even early adulthood, like a young adult, if they're at least not willing to have some sort of discussion, even if you have to try 80% of the time, but they're being reasonable 20%. And it's the same with romantic relationships, as far as I would estimate, and I would insist that you cannot do virtually 100% of the lifting. That 20% that you need might be a very, very important 20%, and you're okay with that relationship. But unfortunately, most people, they not only do virtually 100% of the relationship in terms of the heavy lifting, they tolerate incompatible heavy lifting. That's like being at a job that causes you ill, physical and mental ill. So yeah, you can't pat a dog that barks you. You just have to leave them be. But also, it's a good lesson for yourself. Why do you feel the need to keep patting a barking dog? You know, it's one of those things where they need to also, they need to come to the realization that people are trying to help them and they're being stubborn themselves. A lot of these people, they wake up later and they have a lot of regret. You know, a lot of us have the smaller version of it, like looking back on our love lives and saying, oh, yeah, I could have done that better. I was an idiot here. She didn't deserve to be treated the way I treated her. Yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of things. I should have spoken up. That's a huge one with guys. And with girls, I'd say. Actually, I'd say more with girls. The regret of, I should have said something. I should have opened my mouth. Because by default, women tend to be passive. And if guys aren't active in some way, even if guys are kind of lying in the way that they're not being themselves, but they're spitting out lines to impress girls, at least they're saying something, they're being something. But a lot of women can find themselves in a relationship by just nodding and being agreeable and not saying anything. Are people accusing you, martial arts, oriental medicine, for sounding rageful and upset? This is the thing. If you're normally a person that's calm and you vent a little bit, people kind of can affect you more, and then you sort of you try and defend yourself. Whereas someone who's sort of like how can I put it? Yeah, I don't like, a lot of people don't like the sort of words I use, but if you're spurging out all the time, you're an obnoxious person, right? That's the way I use that term. Someone who flips out. I say spurging out. I don't mean it in any sort of derogatory way. If I only actually found out about what that means recently. I've been using it for years in terms of when you flip out. I say you spurg out. It just sounds like a similar word. Look, if I don't know you, don't get offended, man. Seriously, if I use a term that if someone you knew was using it to you in a derogatory way and it was offensive, that's different. I don't know. This is just me. Even if there's something I cherish and believe and love, and someone else disparages that concept, I don't care. Like, you could disparage my background, nationality, things I love doing, and whatever, and it'll be like rolling my eyes, going, "Yeah, whatever." But that's it. People take it very personally, and I know that people love those things, but yeah, I think we need to take it down a peg. It'll help us put the sword away and being able to have conversations with new people. It's 8 a.m. here in Switzerland as well. So the same time in Switzerland as it is here. That's interesting. I thought there'd be at least a bit of a time difference. Hey, Karu, how are you, man? I know you're pretty good at the moment, and that's good. 4 p.m. in Idaho, the afternoon. Jennifer, hey. PJ says, love is love, romantic love is what we're all confused about. More to the point, I would say modern romantic love. Because the way men and women relate at that time, they're always romantic in some sense. They're treating each other because you can love your dog, you can love something, you can love your country, you can love an idea, but like if you're hetero, loving a compatibly the opposite gender to you in that sort of deep sense, the sort of partner or people who want to have a family, that dynamic, it's always, I would say, been the romantic love of its time. Now, I'm more of a classical romanticist, not in terms of, sonnets and poems and Rapunzel and all of that kind of stuff. But we all know how different you feel, how different you want to act, and the kind of relationship you want to have with that specific person compared to generally others, compared to your platonic best friend or friends. So there's a very, very specific type of caring, loving relationship with that one person that you want to be. I can't even think this morning. I need more caffeine. That you want to be. What's that word? Jeez. Exclusive with. Oh man. So I would say you need to just in the same way you need to define what love is for you, you need to define what romance is for you as well. Now, I completely reject modern romantic love, but I would be more inclined to accept much more of what romantic love was for my parents and grandparents. Not all of it, of course. I think a lot of us, especially guys, we look for the very black and white answer. It's either yes or it's no in terms of like a scientific answer. Romantic love is good, romantic love is bad. Rather than saying, because don't forget, today's society and women especially, they are telling you what romance is, what love between two people is. And so either you take it or you leave it. So what people do is like, okay, I reject it completely. I don't believe in it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Rather than saying, I don't want to have anything to do with your version. So for instance, if everyone was saying, well, like say for instance, a video, the most popular video today, whether it's online or on TV, is reality TV. Now, if everyone said, that is all video, that is all cinema, that is all movies, that is all genres, take it or leave it, you'd say, well, I don't want to watch a screen anymore. I'm done with that entertainment. Rather than saying, no, I specifically watch science fiction. I specifically watch tech videos on YouTube. I specifically, whatever your flavor is. So in the same sense, what love between two people is, you need to find out for you. You need to define for yourself. You need to have your own ethical code by which you can enjoy that or completely reject it. This kind of like Jedi Sith thing where it's kind of completely this way or completely that way, I'm not a big fan of it because you lose like 90% of where life is by being that way. You'll make very quick decisions, but you may not be making the right one and you may be throwing a lot of life away. Or the dynamic range in your life will be very, very reduced. But it's an important question, what does love mean to you? Can you answer it just as a mature person? What are your standards? How do you think it operates today? Like the clownish way men and women operate in terms of love. They don't really have an idea, let alone their own standards. And what you know is compatible with you. What works with your friends, what works when you're alone. You know who you are. And so as such, you know the only kind of person that can plug into your life. Not that they need to be a dog on a leash and just follow your life, that they have a similar life where you two would fit comfortably. The dating coaches today that sort of tell you, well, you've got to be completely solipsistic and the other person's got to be completely in your frame and be a puppet. You're so self-referentially living in your own bubble that what is it? Is it called autosexual? Where you're in love with yourself? Like, you got people, we laugh at women out there who marry themselves. A lot of these guys who want a woman just to be in their frame and just not say a word unless it's the words he wants to speak or hear. They're as bad as these people that marry themselves. Like, because you're effectively having a relationship with yourself. You're having a relationship with a walking, talking doll. And that's fine if you want to do that. Actually, not for me, but I respect anyone's right to live the way they want as long as they're not forcing or manipulating anyone else. And they're truly content, you know? That's another thing. If you think your life is great where, like, if the internet went away for a day, if you'd fall apart, if you think, oh, I don't need women, I don't need this, all I need, like, I've got my complete social life online. But if your online life goes away for a day, do you fall apart? Do you have enough human things in your life, pardon the pun, where if one of them paused for a while or other things needed to be attended to, you could actually deal with it? Like, I find that with myself. Like, today I have a few things I need to organize and do, and I hate doing errands out in the world because I've got a large degree of misanthropy in me. So I'm not a big fan of people out there. But when I have to go out and do things, it kind of really, it wears on me. Ugg Life says, how might one find intimacy if your lifestyle doesn't facilitate meeting women at all and you don't want to try too hard to find it? Since I always hear it happens when you stop looking. This is the thing. If you've got a clear way and a reasonable way in which you leave a narrow door open for a particular type of person because you first did the step of being good with who you are and knowing who you are, and it's based on the few friends or the social life you do have, it's very clear who you are, and there's nothing wrong with who you are. Like, it's not like you can't keep any friendships, but you've got very exclusive ones. Knowing exactly who you are and not having to sort of be some dopey version of everyone else out there. Like, you don't want to have to be on stage and perform just to be to have a chance at getting a girl, because if you do, you've got to perform your whole life, and a lot of guys unfortunately do. It's different if you really come to terms with who you are and accept the narrow corridor by which anyone could sort of come into your life romantically, say. This chair, I swear. But if you don't care much about meeting a woman at all, that's fine. I was like that for a while in the last couple of years as well, since my last long-term relationship. And look, I would say if you don't care about something in life, because you've got to give in that direction, right? It's very, very unlikely you're going to get anything back, especially something back that's miraculously great, right? It's like waiting for the lottery and you don't even buy a ticket. I think that's foolhardy. But if you're realistically got your antenna up for a relationship, that's different from sort of pursuing it and spending all your time doing it. Because the other thing is, I noticed when I was dating a couple of years ago, you know, on dating apps and really looking, you're so focused on finding that thing that, and you notice it in other people, they don't care too much about the person in front of them and compatibility. You're having fun socializing, and you're looking for some mythical thing. You don't even know if it's perfect or not, but you're looking for the job, the role, the thing, and each person has to be ultra perfect before you'll stop enjoying this variety. So I found that when you do stop looking and start just living your life and having your antenna up for, oh, look at them, oh, maybe this, then you've got a better chance. Unfortunately, that old saying, when you stop looking, you tend to find it. It's annoying but true, but it's not so much that you stop looking, it's you stop looking for the role that the person fits into. You start knowing yourself as a human being, and as such, you notice other human beings that are like you, finally. Because you appreciate yourself, then you start to appreciate other versions of yourself. Not solipsistically, but compatibly. Do you know what I mean? That was a long-winded answer. Remember, if you want to ask any questions, guys, on the right, put a couple of emojis, brightly colored ones, preferably yellow or something, just so I know it's a question for me. Make sure to, if you want to do me a solid, like, subscribe. It always helps the channel out. And yeah, if you want to ask a question, either join and I'll see a little icon next to your name, or I'll put a whole bunch of emojis. Yeah, David says people make a hobby out of being offended. This is a thing too. There's a lot of currency now, especially online, to react and be offended, and then people notice the drama going on in your sentence, in your reaction. It's like, oh my, I'll notice human, I'll notice David, like they're offended, they're at each other, like they don't like what the other person said about a topic, and we focus on that, and you feel noticed. But you're not really standing up for the topic. I think you're wanting to talk while you wave a massive flag around saying, hey, listen to us, or look at me, I'm offended. Don't be offended by ideas, although I don't think there's anything wrong with being offended if someone's directing it at you, calling you or somebody close in your life that you care about a name or putting them down. All right. As if you guys don't have any questions at the moment, I'll read. I posed the question. I posed the question in my comments section. I did a poll, and the question was, what have you learnt from bad relationships in the past? Right? And this was the question, and I took a screenshot just before the stream began. That's why I was like a couple of minutes late, because I wanted to get this up. And I just put a few things. Obviously, there's more, and there's been 69 responses underneath since last night that I put this up. I just put generally what came to the top of my head. You know, what have you learned? Do you need to speak up more? Do you need to know your values more? Like you just dropped into a feel-good relationship and you trusted that the relationship would take care of you. But you need to notice that you need to take care of yourself, not no one else is. So like you decide how people treat you. You decide your boundaries, not them. The importance of fairness and reciprocity. You just thought that all people were nice. It happened to me just because I grew up with my mother and my sister, two women that treated me well. They were fair. They were nice people. I thought like, oh, well, this is preparation for this world of women where I pick a version of my own that I love. It's like, nope. There's a very big difference between family, especially if you've had a good family growing up. And noticing like, oh, it's not automatic that people are fair and kind to each other. And without knowing it, like sometimes I might have been irritable and unfair to someone who is incompatible because we're not compatible. When you have that friction of incompatibility, you can be a person that sometimes you're annoyed at as well. It's like, why am I annoyed at them? Why don't I feel good around them? Why don't they understand me? Why can I never explain myself? And as such, I'm demoralized with the way I act around them. It's like it never fits, but it should, you know? Recognizing recognizing what you finally need from a partner. This is, if I had to pick one of these, this is what the big thing I realized with my failed relationships is recognizing what I need from a partner. Now, a lot of people will philosophically say, well, you shouldn't need anything human. You know, you should be good on your own. You don't need any kind of validation. You don't need anyone. But there's certain things I'm talking about that you need from a compatible partner to be able to be, just simply be with them. Not that you're a zero who needs to be filled up by a person, that you're needy, that you don't have a sense of yourself, but what are the ingredients, the compatible ingredients between you and somebody else where it works? You know, what is that? What is it that you need for it to work with you? That's what I mean. And this was a big one for me. And something else. And obviously there were comments below. And did I actually put it up? Does the browser work? Yes, it does. How about that? That guy, Pete, you refused to invite to gatherings. His comment last night, and there's a few more, because see, last night, there were only 3 comments, now there's 64. But last night, the few notable ones were from Pete, you refused to invite to gatherings. And he's got a really great channel as well. Go check his channel out. Goes into a lot more deeper detail than I do. A really, really good value. Longer videos too. So go check his channel out and subscribe. Show him some love. He says all of these things, yes, in one way or another. Like, I mean, I came up with them off the top of my head, but there's bound to be a lot more different ones, and maybe very specific ones that really speak to you and the things that hit you in the face. He says, but given the glass half empty nature of the space, I have also learnt that from the average Joe, modern dating is not as good as the blue pill camp says, but not as bad as the red and black camps say, at least for average Joes. Even so, all these things were learnt because bad relationships, both the ones I was in and the ones I witnessed, reminded me of the importance of things I previously took for granted. TW says, I used to think that politics had nothing to do with a relationship and they didn't matter. How wrong I was. Politics are a sign of your values. This is true to a certain aspect. If you directly watch politics like reality TV, you watch politicians and what people think about different things, and you really get emotional about them, and you're having a relationship with the general public out there, that's a really it's a good way to see where you're passionate, and also maybe where you might need to calm down, because you're not really having, in the absence of an intimate relationship, you might be replacing it with a distal one, with people out there, with politics, with the world, with climate change, with veganism, with whatever the hell it is, because you don't actually have anything in your life to care about. No offense to any sensitive vegans out there. Politics are a sign of your values. They are. Who and what you stand for. If you vote red and she votes blue, it runs deeper and further than merely discussing the economy or the way you think law or immigration should be handled. This is true, because if someone says I'm conservative and I'm liberal, just that general clownish distinction. When you start going down into, okay, what would you do in this situation? What do you think about this? Would you turn left or right in this situation? That's when you actually see where you're incompatible in life. When you go grocery shopping, what they would choose compared to you. You're a morning person, you're an afternoon person, you believe you're conscientious, they're lazy. That's where these things, when you go deeper in conversation, that's where they can be revealed. Or the way law and immigration should be handled. It reflects a mindset that gives indications of how and what you will both what you'll both act and do in the relationship. Values are what defines us. Yes, although the kind of entertainment way that people are interested in politics now as a way to debate, simply to be right and to stand out and to be noticed in life online, that's the stuff I kind of reject. Noticing political dissimilarities between you as a conscious measuring stick to kind of know, oh, like, you know, I wouldn't be able to live with this person. This isn't a compatible partner to me. That's all well and good, but you need to be conscious of that. I'm just talking the kind of just entertainment, reality TV based way that most people talk about politics. I frankly have very little interest in debating politics, but politics as a means of drilling down into a person's belief system, yeah, it is important. I agree. Raja says, "What you choose to see, that you choose to see something that never existed in the first place." Yeah, answering what's the most important thing you've learned from terrible relationships. Raja says that you chose to see something that never existed in the first place. My last relationship, if you could call it that, was like this. It's pretty earth-shattering, to be honest. Yeah, you might be confronted with your need for a relationship rather than you being a nice person that got taken advantage of. Or you can confront, you don't even know what you want. You don't know who you are. You don't like yourself. When you're on your own, the voice in your head keeps putting you down and sabotaging you, and you've got an awful friend in your head that's not on your side. And you might be looking for a pretty something, pretty cheeky poo, to be a reprieve from the relationship you have on your own in your head. So all of these things you need to really confront. When you do, when you have a better relationship with the voice in your head, with yourself, you treat yourself better, you respect yourself, you have boundaries, your ethics are more solid. You walk your talk. You just don't get on a podium online and then when you switch the screen off, you're on autopilot like you have always been from 5 years old. A lot of times we choose relationships because of deficiencies we don't want to face within ourselves. So the question, what's the most important thing you've learned from being in a terrible relationship? You know, just to read some of the other comments under the stats, you've got, let me see. Quasimandias says, ultimately, your time is your most precious asset. He says, ultimately, your time is your most precious asset. Everything else a bad relationship robs you of is replaceable. Your time is not. Not only does a bad relationship rob you of your peace in the moment, it robs you of the opportunity to have a meaningful relationship in that same moment. This loss is irrecoverable and unforgivable. This is very true. A lot of people suffering staying in the relationship is the regret of wasting time. You could have not just necessarily met somebody else, which is true. It's like when you choose a job begrudgingly because you need to pay the bills. You destroy every opportunity after that because you don't go searching anymore. And especially in relationships, you're not going to go out there searching for a better partner. Yes, I know there's some women who are always on the lookout. But once, especially a lot of guys commit, a men's sense of loyalty much more than women, they lock themselves in and they get on with life thinking that they've got that relationship set and that's the foundation in their life. They can go to work now and do other things. But they may have just gotten the object of a relationship, but not the substance of a compatible one. Sarah says, I finally learnt what I need from a partner and I also can look back and see what I always gave so much of myself and never got much in return. Now I know what works for me and I'm trying to improve myself so that I too am a better partner to that person. That's great to hear. It's not just what the other person didn't give me. Both men and women will say this, but are you being fair too? Do you give what you demand a woman never gave you? Or it's fine to point at how someone mistreated you, right? That's logical and it's fair and you're probably accurate if you're being honest about it. But also, if you demand a lot but you don't give a lot, if you demand a Victoria's Secret model and you're some sort of couch walrus, you're grotesque and they're beautiful, you want someone who's rich and you're just kind of lazy and grumpy, and you want someone outgoing, but you're sort of some morose introvert homebody. Like you're not really looking at who you are and fair compatibility, what you're going to offer. A lot of women who are passive, I've said this for a while, that they sit there with their arms crossed, and it's all romance and love to them is give, give, give. Love is not just getting, especially for women. This is why you notice some women who are, coffee shop feminists in the past, and all of a sudden now they find someone they enjoy cooking for. They will make a sandwich for. They do wash the dishes for their relationship. Not just him, but they enjoy being with them. They found somebody, or they've kind of outgrown their sort of spurgy, redheaded university sort of feminist ideals. Like, it's that you enjoy doing something for somebody else. Denying yourself relating physically in life by showing affection through deeds and actions. I know I feel good doing good for people who deserve it. Not you live a very, very tepid sort of weak in the sense of not rich in color, and you're not really living very much if you stand back in the cold logic of, well, the surest way of not being taken advantage of is not to give anything. So I won't lose anything if I don't give anything. But you also, and again, mostly for women who tend to, like I said, they can find themselves in relationships and they can exist in a relationship without contributing anything. If you don't look at who you are, know what works for you, what's compatible for you, then you can give yourself permission to give to a compatible person that you've consciously made an assessment that, yes, they don't contradict themselves. They don't flip out. They do give things to me, even without asking. They give and show and treat me in a way that I really like, that I haven't had in the past, that I really notice, I respect, and I want to do things for them because I notice what they want. So there's this really nice cycle that happens rather than crossing your arms. And what Quaz said about time being irreplaceable is really spot on. A lot of us guys who are annoyed, we're annoyed at wasting a lot of time. And you will waste more time if you don't really develop a sense of ethics and morals by which you can sort of operate with people, or reject them because you know they're not for you. Know thyself is a time-honored saying because it speaks volumes. It's not about being selfish using others. It's about having self-respect so that you know who to relate to properly, like intimately. Generally in life, pleases and thank yous, being polite and civil and having etiquette, that's one thing. But the person you invite into your home, the person you spend a lot of your time with, where you spend a lot of your time, and this goes for friends too. Do your friends drain you, or do they recharge you? At the very least, they should take nothing from you. There should be a neutrality, or there are aspects where people enrich your life as well, but not that they keep taking things away from you. The only time I can think of is, you had children, and unfortunately, they drain you to one degree or another. But aside from that, if you're adults, you can pay bills, you can have kids. You're by default as a citizen of this society responsible for a lot. Whether you want to believe it or not, life doesn't care. You're going to be responsible one way or another. If you don't want to take responsibility and act in accordance of what your own best interests, people will impose their interests on you and they'll waste your time, as Quaz mentioned. So don't let romantic people waste your time, platonic people, the wrong kind of jobs, the wrong kind of lifestyles. Martial Arts Oriental Medicine says, I never turn left. It'll take you a long time to get you to your destination. I'm thinking that if you do that while driving, you could still get to your destination, but it'll take a long time to get there. Boston guy says, I never cared much about politics, but if you don't agree with the politics of a progressive liberal woman, it's game over. No rational discussion allowed. No thanks. Yeah. Look, they're easy. Someone who's interested in politics, like I said, like a reality TV show, they want to debate. They take ideas like they're people, right? Rather than just judging them as intellectual entities by which you can know what you're interested in. As long as you're civil about it. But yeah, politics do belie a lot of ethics and morals that if you pay attention to a person's politics, and like politics kind of bleed into their philosophical arguments. A lot of people don't. They just attach to a group. They found themselves into a political group. You might have grown up in your family or with certain friends. They lean a certain way. And because you like those people, you just decide to lean that way too. What do you care? You get a social environment if you believe what they believe. But you may find yourself in life adrift and going like, do I really believe this stuff? Or is this comfort food to have a social, to continue to have my social group, my friends and family? Tokyo Traveler says, I learned just how many of my thoughts about women in my 20s were right. Seriously, I had a lot of thoughts I felt were immature, but I was spot on a lot of the times. Yes, this is another thing I would encourage guys not to ignore, your instincts. What is making you feel uncomfortable and what is making you feel good? And try and figure out why in both cases. If for no other reason, so you can actually trust your gut more often and not just say, oh, I'm going to ignore feelings. I'm going to just look at the data like a man, because women do feelings, we do logic. The danger is data can be doctored out there. Like a lot of the media, they tell you the information they want you to hear that serves them. And whereas I would say, and I think that guy Pete says something similar, where the first teacher or the first thing you should, I've always said, the last and the most important and predominant filter you should always use is your lived experience. Like what you've seen, what you've read, the people you've been. Who cares how people act in, I don't know, Siberia? If I never get to experience it, it's interesting. It might sort of teach people in the West or here, I wish they would act better, but it doesn't matter. It matters insofar as how it can inform and better my life. But your lived experience finally is the filter of your reality, what makes sense, and the compass that can guide you. Because your lived experience, your sort of your ethics and your morals, you sort of derive from that. That really makes what you say, how you act, what you choose, what you reject, what your boundaries are, and things like that. So I would encourage guys to trust themselves more, because a lot of the debating and fighting between men and women, the politics, the dating, it just kind of demoralizes everyone, makes them trust themselves less and less, and they just go by the dating gurus. They just go by the data. They just go by the stats. Be informed by them, but trust yourself in absorbing, chewing on it, and seeing what works for you. Hey Donna, how are you? Yeah, hit the like button, guys. Helps me out. Also, you know what's, it's also very clarifying if you sort of take that extreme ownership point of view and your first reflex is to look at yourself like a third person. Say you and Chicky Poo are having an argument, right? And maybe not in that moment, but if you can, you get better at doing it in the moment. But certainly right after it, you don't get defensive, and because no one likes to be proven wrong or admit guilt and feel shameful by, justifiably so. But look at a situation as a third person, observing it in neutrality. Like, okay, I was arguing with her. Does she have a point with her, with what she's complaining about with me? Oh, she might have a point there. Do I have a point? As an observer, take my self-interest out of it. It's very hard to do, especially realistically. But if you're interested in philosophy and a philosophical fairness, there's a lot of F's in that, philosophical fairness, that will serve you well. Then you start to be able to do it in a conversation where you can go, hang on a minute, that's not fair. Then you can continue the conversation while you're there. But initially, if you're not used to expressing your thoughts, you start to, although not that you start to, I encourage you to start to look at situations as a third person, a neutral observer, like a therapist with a clipboard, and just look at what's fair, who said what, and then go from there. Then you'll be able to start to do it in real life. So the wrong kind of people can teach you how to be a better person going forward. It's not always about them. A lot of times it is, but if you're a zero, you say and do nothing, and you're happy to be led, then the percentage is that they're going to take you down paths that you didn't choose to go down. But if you never said no, if you pretended to agree, then whose fault is it? You decide how people treat you. Remember, guys, if you want to ask a question, put a whole bunch of emojis next to your question or super chat them to me. And feel free to join the channel if you feel like it. Who's being a spurg, Karu? If everyone if a lot of people are getting annoyed at a particular person, yeah, I'm happy with the majority ruling. If a person's being obnoxious or pushy or just won't let something go and everyone's getting annoyed at them. I'll go through some more of the questions under this question I posed. What have you learned? Floyd says, sadly, I feel like I did not learn any of the above from my bad relationships. Any of these? Hang on. No, any of these? I already knew almost exactly what I wanted going in. The classic marriage family I had observed between my parents and grandparents. This included fairness, reciprocity, as it also is one of the basics in all my relationships. Not only romantic ones, yeah. I was also very vocal in speaking up when I felt treated unfairly in the way I would have been with a friend as well. What I personally learnt from those relationships was rather, there is little reciprocity. Modern women will usually take more from you than they give. And this is funnily in the age of equality. Yeah, I think people today, they use a lot of words to get away with contributing very little, especially fairly. In the age of equality, still the accepted social norm, and if you don't abide, she will easily find a guy who happily does sooner or later. Speaking up usually only led to many arguments, sleepless nights, and temporary breakups for me. I know it sounds really negative, but to me, it was a huge relief to come to learn these things, as it eventually made me stop trying to fit a square peg into a round hole and develop low expectations and genuinely low interest in serious commitment. I know what you mean. Sometimes I used to think, you know, when people sort of, I felt this way, it's like, I give up with most women out there, and you should give up. But it's giving up on accepting such a wide variety of people and giving them a chance, because you might be an agreeable person, you might be a nice person, Thank you for the super chat, Tokyo Traveler. I really appreciate it. Their comment is, yes, go with your gut, especially in relationships. I think about a gut instinct as subconscious logic. Since men tend to be less emotionally volatile, we should trust our feelings and instincts more. Yeah, ignoring how you feel can really deaden your experience. If you can't even enjoy feeling safe with your instincts and feelings, like, oh, I don't feel good, why? You can't directly go and ask why to that feeling and, that sort of thing inside you. If you're kind of always avoiding introspection that way, you're going to be very mechanical going through the world, and you're going to be listening to more the 9-step program of picking up a chick. You're going to robotically go through life, taking things to feel good, which for me is a very typically modern woman way of living. Martial arts oriental medicine jokes. He says, "Who hurt you, human? LOL." Many women. I also hurt myself a few times by the way I didn't act or didn't speak up. These things. Didn't speak up. I didn't care about fairness. I thought, oh, well, that's just the way women are. A relationship, by dint of what it is, what everyone tells me, is hard work. You have to go out all the time to lubricate it. You have to go on holidays, dinners, always go shopping, upgrading things you really don't need to. You need variety. You need a lot of this stuff so you don't get bored. That's normal. Recognizing what you really need. And caring about yourself, like, I exist. Oh, I'm there too. It's not just her. Like, it's two of us. Oh, yeah. Realistically acknowledging, like, at the very least, 50%. Like, there's no two ways about it. You are not dropping below 50% of self-respect and balance in a relationship, especially when you're being pushed to feel worse and worse and give more and more and more. When you get to 50%, it's a hard no. Like, the dial doesn't go any lower than 50%, sweetheart. I don't care. And that is a way for me to trust my instincts of saying, why has the dial reached 50%? Why am I not giving more constantly? Why am I not constantly giving like 80 and 90% to a reciprocal person who's doing the same, who's feeding me? Like, we're only taking a little bit from each other, but the other person is willingly contributing much more. And it's that really beautiful cycle going on. Okay. I'm glad you deleted Naked HD. Yeah, he looks like one of these bots. Even if he's not a bot, they sound like a bot. Martial Arts Oriental Medicine says, human, what's up with the lightsaber back there? And the black coat, you really are showing your true self. No. These midweek streams, I have them much earlier, and so the sun barely comes up. The sun's gone up now. But, yeah, this also, I don't have to kind of do this all the time because the clouds and the sun aren't going in and out. I'm controlling the lighting at the moment. So, yeah, in terms of this question, what's the most important thing you've learnt? Robert says, all relationships are and should be voluntary. It made me examine every relationships from familial to state. Mm-hmm. KWR550, knowing and establishing my boundaries that no woman can manipulate or move on. Yeah, I don't know if you can guarantee that. I guess that can count as knowing thyself. Yep. RD, the prairie dog, says, I voted reciprocity. Yeah, that's just a kind of very simple, balanced, fair way. And then as long as the person's fair and reasonable, then you can see if you've got particular compatibilities with the person. I would agree. Like, what's a good baseline? What kind of temperament should they have? Like a fair, reciprocal one. And then you can see if you're compatible in sort of the very specific ways that would make you go out with them and commit to them exclusively. Yeah, Jonathan Michael, Jonathan MS says, it's a mix of knowing yourself and recognizing what you need in a partner. Yeah, I'd agree. RD continued, I will admit that is very much related to knowing myself and my values. When I realize that I'm not getting that I'm not getting from them what I'm giving, I know when to stand up for myself, whether that means to address that with the person or leave them alone if it can't be rectified. Yes. It's really good kind of knowing that you have a choice in not being passive anymore, because it's a lazy way to say, well, I'll just be a nice guy because my parents told me to be a nice guy and everyone says to be a nice guy and that's the polite thing to do. But a nice guy is that sort of dead fish that goes with the tide. You have to be actively swimming in your way and not go with the flow of her relationship. It has to be yours too. You have every right, like I said, going into it at least 50-50. And then if they're compatible, you realize you're giving more because they are. Like, you don't go below 50%. You don't give any more. You know, you don't allow them to start taking like 49, 48, 40, you know, you don't empty yourself out. When you meet a person and you've sort of done the assessment, you've kind of look, oh, well, they look interesting. I really like X, Y, and Z. They make me feel good. I like how they speak. They'd be interesting to get to know further because I can't really see any warning signs and they make me feel good. Baseline should be 50-50. Guard the dial going backwards for you giving more and more. If it works, and especially if you're being introspective and you're reading between the lines and you're noticing why you feel good or why you're feeling bad, if it's working, if you're compatible, you'll start recognizing why you love the person, why you care about them, why you like being around them, why they make you feel good. You start noticing gestures that align with your ethics and morals, what you consider a good person to be, what it says about their character, things like that. Then it starts to be that you're starting to give more than 50%, but also they're giving back. And you're continually feeding that extra, you know, that more than 50% into the relationship. Not necessarily like you're feeding it into this sort of dance between you, the relationship, in fact. So it's not so much you're giving it to her, you're giving it to the dynamic where you're both dancing, you know? Viking Shark says, it's better to be alone than in a terrible relationship. I agree. Or even one that's just okay-ish. It's better to be resigned to the actively seeking to stay single than it is to add stress to your life in return for a little bit of return on investment, if any, that you get from it. Yeah. Also, you don't want to be like a lot of these people, especially the women out there who have their standards so high, because you can sort of be overly virtuous about them, saying, look, I've just got really high standards, and you perpetually just stay out there like hooking up and socializing, and you get to old age and you've learnt just to be a single person rotating people and being so self-sufficient that the doors are locked, no one can get in. And realistically, when you're older, especially when you know yourself more, anyone with anyone with any kind of speak properly, human. Anyone with any kind of self-respect. I am not going to beat the door down of someone who might be a nice person, but they've locked the door that no one can come through to. Even if I can recognize they're a nice person, but if there's such a thick wall to get through, like, I don't have that kind of time or patience or effort, nor should I. If they knew themselves, they would have that door unlocked for me to get through fairly easily. But if they don't, these people that say, well, no one's willing to, you know, these women that say they're intimidated by me. They're not. You're between like 6 foot of titanium. Like, you're not that special that someone needs to slay a dragon to get to you. You've got this wall of like being obnoxious and terrible. Like no one with any kind of self-respect is gonna fight through that. Get over yourself. No one should have to do the work of fighting through your walls and issues to prove to you how much they love you. You got to tear those walls down yourself. I'll just quickly go through some of those. David P says, to know and understand my values, morals, ethics, and standards, and to stick to them. This is what David says he's learned from bad relationships. He continues, compromise is fine in some aspects, but in others you must stand firm. Yep. You got to know your hard deal breakers, no matter what, and then your flexible boundaries, depending on what kind of person they are, and when you will be flexible for a particularly great person, that you will only sort of soften or make those boundaries flexible to them, because they offer so much more that you're fine with sort of coloring outside the margins a little bit. How long have we been going so far? An hour. All right, people. Let's remember, if you want to ask a question on the right, add a bunch of emojis, like 2 or 3 before your question, just so I know you're directing it to me. And any people who are trolling in the comment section will be deleted by the people who have a wrench next to their name. Those are the people I've... How come you don't have a wrench, Karu? Should I give you a wrench? Karu is very... I'll give Karu a wrench. There you go. I hope I gave the wrong person the right person the wrench. It's really hard to kind of see. No, I think I did. Rocket, I'll add you. I'll give you a wrench too. I'm giving people wrenches left, right, and center. If I give too many, this is the thing. Like, I get along with a lot of people, but a lot of them have very different personalities, and things that they would consider ejecting someone for, I wouldn't necessarily. So just use your power if you've got a wrench with a light hand. And if it's objectively reasonable to get rid of someone, get rid of them if everyone agrees. But otherwise you'll get the wrench taken away from you. Quasimandias says, high-functioning people will always give more than half. That's the flip side of being high-functioning. The question is whether it is worth it. Yes, I agree. The more you know your ethics and values, the more you easily give and freely give and don't have those walls up. Error 49 says, to the mods deleting the BS spam, thank you. So it was a bot. It looked like it. Tokyo Traveler, thank you for becoming a member, for joining. Feel free to join anybody, and like, subscribe if you feel like it. Yeah, it is still winter here. It's pretty cold. I barely had time to get my coffee, which is cold at the moment. Ah, yes, Karu has a wrench. Now he has power. With great power comes great responsibility, my friend. Rocket Scientist says, crap, the guy with the shortest fuse just got a wrench. Should I take it off you? I want to be just rational. If you don't want it, Rocket, people are sort of, I know, I'll give it to. But then again, some of the guys that I know that I talk to, they've got very little patience. And I don't want them... if you know you've got very little patience and you'd rather not, I can take it off you. No harm, no kind of harm given. Not harm given. No offense taken. I really can't speak properly this morning. Excellent new mods. Yeah, I felt Donna's been taking a lot of the load because a lot of the other mods in the past, I think they've kind of moved on. They don't come to the stream as often anymore, and that's fine. A lot of this information, once it's served you, you kind of move on to life. The same with a lot of content creators in this space. I think that I enjoy making and editing videos, and I enjoy the philosophical discussion behind it. So it's not just for me about how do I get a woman? I'm lonely. Why did I, like, it's unfair what happened to me. I'm much more interested in the philosophical aspects of relating to people, life decisions, having conversations with you, and I also love editing videos. Grish said, first time in my life I've seen YouTube interrupt the live stream to show a commercial. Really? All right. Okay, any final questions, people? Remember to either super chat them or put a bunch of emojis before your question so I know it's a question. Sarah says, yeah, that's when I realized that it should be 50-50, that I had given so much to the relationship, but he didn't reciprocate as much. It's important to be honest about it, fairly honest, not in a way that you boost your ego up to get yourself up off the floor. Sometimes, a lot of times people get angry to get brave. You also, if that's all you're doing, then you'll just repeat the thing with a different person. If you have actually learnt any kind of temperance or humility about what's happened, like if you can't improve yourself going forward. If it just keeps happening over and over again in the same way, depending on who you pick, then it's probably how you're conducting yourself as well, to a large degree. Oh, did the ad that interrupted the stream, did that did it put the chat out of sync? Is my audio and video out of sync? I wonder. All right, I'll continue to read some comments if you guys haven't got any new ones, and then we'll wrap the stream up. So any final questions, put them in the stream, super chat them, and we'll head to the finish line. The power of the mute button. Mike, I wonder if this is your real name. Mike H. U-N-T. Knowing thyself and applying it to the real is paramount to one's potential at any given moment. It must be applied continually as a self-respecting guide. To allow oneself to stray from this is costly. I can personally attest, it is not a selfish behavior, but one of self-respect. I agree. Not thirsty, I'm salty says, I'd like to say that having values, goals, seeking growth, compromising and sharing a vision of the future sounds really effing boring. It does, until you're trying to relate to someone where none of that is sort of in the mix. It's boring until you need it. Sandor says, having boundaries, don't go back on your values and don't fall for gaslighting. Also, I would say that don't hold on to your boundaries as a suit of armor where no one else can get through. Because a lot of people now are, and righteously so, they say, I let a person walk all over me. I never spoke up. I didn't have boundaries. I couldn't speak up for myself. And now that's all they have. And they don't let anyone in. No one can be around them. It's all about them defending themselves all the time. I've known people like this. Recently, I had a falling out with a friend because of this. So be careful with this stuff, that you don't sort of use it in a one-handed fashion where everyone's a nail and you're a hammer just because you want to set boundaries. Robert A.R. says, never expect from her to cure your loneliness. That's when you become anxious, codependent, and you just F up everything. Yes, that's a very good point. If you always feel lonely on your own, then that's what you're coming to the table with, dependency on someone. Like an empty dependency where you're just going to say yes because you don't like being alone. You don't like the loneliness that comes with being alone. If you're alone, you should feel fine. If you're always lonely as a perpetual state, yeah, people feel lonely every now and then. But if it's constant, that's a problem with you. Yeah, I can't pronounce the name, but they left a comment. The fact that I'm well better being alone. Again, trust your instincts, your feelings, as the Jedis would say. Trust your feelings. Why do you feel better away from them? Why do you feel better alone? Why do you feel anxious with them, going towards them? Why do you feel better driving away from them? Why do you need time away from them? Are you drawn to them? Or can you only take them for an hour or so? Do you need your space? These are very important questions. And a lot of people BS themselves because they found like, oh, I found someone, I'm not alone anymore. And they excuse it with, oh, relationships are hard work. You need distance from each other. You need to have your independence. And a lot of this modern Oprah style of philosophy that tells you that you should separate yourself from people. You shouldn't need them. You should have your independence. You should know who you are. But a lot of that stuff makes people very egotistical, very, and lead a life where if the person doesn't, live in their frame, if the person doesn't do everything they ask, if basically they're not a puppet in your life, that you will think they're the wrong one. Mike says, in terms of this question, what's the most important thing you've learned from being in terrible relationships? To never get into one again. Regards, Wombat. Sure. Never get into a bad relationship ever again, a terrible one. Don't repeat the same. I mean, you might make new mistakes, but try your best not to drop into the same template of a person again. And not just say, well, they're the kind of people I'm attracted to. There's nothing I can do about it. Yes, you can. If you're embarrassed about how it always works out with the people, that's the way you are. It's the same as those people that say, well, they've got tempers and they're hard to be around. It's like, well, it's other people's problem if they can't handle me. That's just the way I am. No, it's your problem because people can't be around you. If you're complaining about why can't you find someone, you're losing friends and people are always wronging you, but you recognize that you're hard to handle, it's your problem. Would you enjoy being around someone like you? Spec Ops said you should check out Rumble. No, I shouldn't. Yeah, Peg says bitterness can breed bitterness. Yeah, what you put in is what you get out. I've said also recently, again, my motto, everything in life is a relationship. If you're consuming certain types of content and around certain types of people, that's how you're conditioning yourself to be. That's going to seep into your personality, how you talk, your expectations, fair or unfair. It'll happen. It's going to condition you. The environment, the people you're around, and the entertainment and the things you consume, they all condition you. What you're drawn to, what you love being around and reading and watching and things like that. Okay, if there's no more questions in the stream, let's wrap it up because there's a lot of questions under the poll. Chromatic Dragon says, what you will and won't do without. Yeah, what's important to you? What can you live with and what can't you? Are you kind of putting up with a lot just for a little bit? Are you putting up, you shouldn't be putting up with essential things, but are the important quality things, like not numerically, because some people sort of say, well, I really enjoy, the sex, right? But on aggregate, is that a large part of the quality of the relationship? If that's the only quality aspect to it, then you can't just sort of say, well, like there's that I really value. But if that's all you want, you're better off just hooking up. You don't actually want a partner. You have to know where the quality is in the things you really can't do without. And if there's lesser things that you can kind of tolerate, and they're not tolerating as such, they're kind of like you recognize that the person's just different from you. Again, you can't have things all your way. You can't just watch science fiction all the time. You need to be fair and watch a boring romantic drama every now and then, or go out to dinner or whatever it might be. And if you're going out with a person that you enjoy spending time with, it's no big deal. Again, it comes from also, if you're so locked into being on your own, it's harder and harder to kind of do and recognize and loosen your grip on doing those things. So again, self-reflection. Are you being fair? Would you be able to go out with and be in a relationship with someone like you? Michael says you can't save her. Yeah, some of us guys have been with women who are just perpetually sad, and you feel like nothing you can do can make her happy, but she's just a sad person. People who are perpetually sad, you can't do much for them. Again, that's just incompatible. Grow a backbone. Yep. Value myself. A lot of very sensible sort of things. I just wanted to pose this question. Is there one thing that kind of stood out? There's numerous things, especially if I look back on different relationships. There were certain really big realizations and lessons, but I think it's really good to recognize this stuff. The worst is the embarrassment if you do exactly the same thing again with the exact same kind of person, just they look different. Oof. Wayne C, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. He said, not flipping to the same page on loneliness. Alone most of my life, loneliness is a constant, seems normal in my opinion. What's the reasoning for contrary? Yeah, there's a very big difference between being alone and being lonely. I recognize the distinction. You should be good with yourself. If you have a good relationship on your own, if you hate being alone, that can belie a lot of dangers in you just picking anyone just to relieve the state of being alone, Are you naturally needy or codependent, or not codependent? Are you naturally, do you need validation constantly? Are you the kind of person that can't be on their own? The chances of you picking anyone just to relieve that is very, very high. And then it's easy to justify and debate why you broke up. But if you can't be alone, you find it very hard to be alone, then a lot of the problems are probably you picking anyone blindly just to relieve being alone and lonely. Karu, don't just ban everyone. Or I'll take the wrench away from you. All right, let's wrap up the stream. And yeah, this is a good one. We how long have we been going for? I think nearly an hour and 20 minutes. This is a good time to wrap it up. I think the sweet spot is an hour to an hour and a half. So this is perfect. So guys, good midweek stream. It's always hard getting up for these midweek ones so early, but it seems like you guys enjoy it. And I'll see you in the next video. Next video will be dropping probably in the next 24 hours or so. So stay tuned, and I'll catch some of you on Discord if you've got a microphone after this. I'll catch you later, guys. Have a good week, and I'll see you in a video this week, and I will catch you on the stream this weekend. Bye.